some expertise here.
Just thought I'd make you a little more nervous.
Thanks, appreciate it so much. Appreciate it so much. Sinjin, tell us a little bit about how long you've been listing homes, how many houses you'll list this year.
Yeah, so I have been listing homes for the last 2 years, primarily on Dave's team. I'll probably sell a little over 100 homes this year as the listing agent with the help of Karen. Karen is a huge part of it.
And Tracy, I saw that you have been in real estate for 15 years. 15 years, that's incredible. And are you
14
primarily
and a half with KW.
14 and a half with KW, primarily seller based, buyer based too?
Started buyer base
Buyer-
and then switched to seller a couple years ago.
Okay,
Just, I don't know why, it just happened.
just happened.
Yeah.
Awesome. And Erica, how long in real estate? About how many houses we list this year?
Since 2007. And how many houses are gonna sell? About 100. Listings wise, they're not 100 this year.
Plenty,
Yeah, but a lot. Yeah.
plenty since 2007. That's crazy. So you've been an agent through multiple different kinds of markets, right? So a lot of what we're going to talk about today is, setting you guys up as listing agents to come into work with a seller in the market that we're in today, which I think is really helpful. So market's crazy, right? Everybody is it easy to work with sellers now? Not necessarily. It's different, right? It's different. So first question I have for you guys, and prepare your questions because I want to ask you in afterwards, but in any market that we have, we always ask a seller to prepare the home for the market, right? Nice home, nicer looking home, get more money, right? Is that what we do when we take a car in? Tell us how your advice around preparing the home for the market changes in this market that we're in. Does it change in any way of how we get ready for the market? What do you got, Erica?
So does it change? Not necessarily. So for each house or each seller that we speak to, we have a conversation with them. Depending on the position of the home and the seller's market, it doesn't matter. There's houses that still fail to sell. But right now, I think in Dalton County, there were 206 that have failed to sell. So there is a such thing as preparing the home to sell. It doesn't matter what market it's in. And we truly believe that there are some things that are necessary in order for you to sell your house for top dollar. The conversation again is different based on their budget and their ability to prepare the home to sell as well. So there's a lot of different variables that take place. So I would say not necessarily just the market, but just also the person talking to across the table.
Yeah, that's so interesting. I love how you say that because, sellers, if they're not educated, they think anything will sell right now, right? To be able to say, no, we still need to do that to get ready. How about you, Tracy? Any different advice right now?
No, I am completely the same, probably a little strict. The biggest thing I find is especially the older clientele, they're very attached to their houses. So they might have raised their children there for 50 years. The biggest issue is the wife being unable to detach.
from that?
So I have that conversation first, and then we walk through the house, and I just tell them how to prepare and what to expect and what to do. So I've been working with people since May for that.
Wow.
I was in competition for the listing, got it, and it should be going on the market here shortly.
Still getting prepared. How about you, Sinjin? Any difference advice in the market that we're in and preparing for the market?
So it always starts with the conversation about, like Erica said, what do you want to do? Do you want to try and sell it as close to as possible? Or you think you want to have contractors come out and do this, that, or the other thing? Or would you like to spend $500 to $1,000 to get things, more saleable and more marketable? And so really aligning with what their goals are. At the end of the day, the conversation is always around what is going to give you the biggest bang for your buck. And I think first impressions are huge. So obviously, I always tell them to stand outside the front door, pretend like they're going to view their house and their agent's fumbling around with the lockbox. What are you going to be looking at? Look up in the corners, look at the cobwebs. What would you feel if you walked up to your own home?
Got it.
And then inside, I think some of the biggest things, if they want to do work or paint, flooring, I really hesitate around, maybe we should do a bathroom over, a kitchen
Right.
over. I've told people that have gotten that advice and they've shot themselves in the foot, and thankfully we were able to
Yeah.
sell their home, but people's taste is so particular now. I think making the best of what you have and really doing a good job of doing a thorough cleaning and really just taking pride in the home speaks volumes whenever buyers come through us.
So kind of summary from all of you is even in this crazy market where houses are selling like crazy. There are some that are not selling. There are still homes that are not selling, and you still need to prepare your home for the market in some way, right? How about expectations? So one of you mentioned, I always set some expectations. I always educate on what this is likely going to look like. How are your expectations changing, the way that you're giving expectations right now? Sinjin, start for that.
Yeah, I mean, I think a lot of it has to do with price point. You know, we always talk about under promising and over delivering.
Yeah,
So I always hesitate about getting them ready for the circus that can ensue around
Yeah.
certain price points. And you know, in certain price points in certain locations, it's pretty much a shoo-in in this market that you're gonna have wall-to-wall showings, and you might as well just go to your in-laws for the weekend
right.
and get those things taken care of. The
But
expecta-
you hesitate in like over saying that.
Exactly, but I don't want them to think something's wrong, you know, it could be an off weekend, so I do want them to understand that it could be a little bit of a hectic time, but the benefit of that is you're gonna be in the driver's seat a little bit here, so items and terms that you're looking for, we can most likely get. People are more likely to allow you to find a new home if you're thinking about buying to sell, because they're just looking to get into a property. So really just educating them what it means. They may not have inspections, but we still want to keep in mind that you want to disclose everything, and the better that you disclose, the more likely people may waive a inspection because they feel really at ease about how much you know about your property. So just really telling them that it can be exciting, and yet at the same time, you know, we do want to work together with the other side too and put ourselves in the best position.
Yeah, Tracy, how about you on expectations? What expectations are you setting for sellers in this market?
In this market, I think it's just that depending on the price point, it's going to be a little crazy. It could be depending on price. It is starting to soften a little bit, so the conversation is changing some with me with the sellers. But just basically, I'll try to list on a Thursday or Friday, tell them just to go away for the weekend, take the dogs, cats, kids, and just pile them in the car, go see the grandparents, or just go somewhere every day. I did the mistake though of listing a house over a weekend. Didn't realize it was outlaws at Williams Grove. So there were showings, however, in those showings, the feedback was the road was extremely busy.
Yeah.
Well, the road was extremely busy because it was the outlaws, and that's in that area. But we did get multiple offers, and, you know, still to point out, there were no inspections. However, the seller and I did notice something in the basement, and he is addressing that. Even though there is not an inspection, we still want to be honest and go forward and have it corrected and looked at.
Yeah, good, good. Erica, any difference in the way you're setting expectations right now?
Not too much. So we also, again, we look at the location and the price, right? Location plays a key part because people are really, they want to know, okay, as far as, is it going to be rural? If it's rural area, they may not get as many people that go to their, you know, to the properties. When I say rural, I'm talking about maybe, help me off.
Halifax.
Thank you, Halifax.
Right.
Or, you know, so we're like off the beaten road. So we let them know that, hey, you may not get a slew of people, like 20 people that want to actually come to your house. But as long as you have about 10 people that are looking to want to see your home, that's really good, you know, depending on the location. So again, it depends on who we're talking to, who's across the table. The other thing too is if for some reason that they don't, we let them know that, hey, if for some reason up front, we let them know if for some reason, you know, after we went through all these expectations and you're not getting the number of people that we were expecting, we're going to have a conversation with you, right? Expect to have that conversation. So we may have missed something. So we like to say we're professionals, we may have missed something like, oh my gosh, I did not know, like you said, you know, over that weekend, there was going to be this major event that's going to occur. So we do try to give ourselves some kind of leeway in our talks and expectations, because we may forget, because you may not know it all in the area. So that's the difference.
That's great.
Yeah, yeah, I do too. I do too, for sure. All right, let's talk about pricing. Pricing homes in this market can be crazy, right? We've been increasing in values, but really drastically over at least the last 12 months, increasing in values. How have your pricing conversations changed in this market versus how to price a home in a different market?
Tracy?
I think with me is, I will still price it. I'm not going to go high. I'll probably land in not the low point, but maybe in the middle. That way, if we do have multiple offers, which, depending on the house, you do. I also am always looking at appraisals. So I'm not going to price it where I know it's going to go over list, so I might have an issue with appraisal. I'll stop it and make sure that I don't accept any contracts over that to interfere with that. So I'm just constantly watching the market and just making sure that I'm double, triple checking my CMAs.
Yeah, and so, just to elaborate more, as you're looking at what other homes have sold for, maybe I used to look back 12 months and maybe now I'm only looking back 6 months, right? Is that what you would say?
That's what I would say, depending on where it's at. I did have to do one recently where I had to go back a little more just to get more listings. So it just all depends on, again, price, the house, the area, and how bad they want to sell and how you think the house is going to perform once it does hit.
Yeah. Anything different on
I'm gonna
pricing?
be a little bit more controversial. I don't care about like what the actual price is gonna be once it's under contract, because that's the buyer's decision, right, as they want. Our goal is to manage the expectations of the seller.
So
right?
tell us how you do that. So we get a buyer with this really high price, and in your mind, you're thinking, this may have a tough time appraising. It has a mortgage. What kind of conversation are you having with the seller based on that?
So the conversation I'm having with the sellers is, okay, so we have limited inventory. In your neighborhood, you have 0 homes. It's highly sought after, right? So more than likely, someone's gonna show the best team. So it may be $50,000, maybe even $100,000 over guessing. Now, you and I both know that may not appraise, right? So you have to get ready or prepare yourself as to what you're willing to accept if the appraisal does come back. More than likely, you're going to have an appraisal gap, right? So we have to see how much the buyer is also willing to pay to differentiate between what they're actually what you receive plus your appraisal. I'm nervous because I don't like talking about money.
I'm with you.
Can we hire Erica?
Especially my colleagues that know college just as much as me. So, yeah, but that's what we do.
Was that like super helpful for anybody else? Yeah, that's incredible, Erica.
Yeah.
That's so great. Sinjin, anything to add?
Yeah,
Anything different?
I do think setting the expectation that, hey, if the more we can get, great, just as long as you understand the risks that go along with this decision. And this is how we can leverage that out. There are great forms now that PAR has put into place for
Awesome.
appraisal cuts.
And the buyer agent has a responsibility too.
Of course,
Yeah,
yeah.
if
They
they want to let
educate,
their
yeah.
buyers like put an offer over 100,000, then
They better know what they're up.
Yeah,
They're gonna be
have
doing.
a conversation
Yeah.
with your buyer.
Yeah.
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 The one thing I will say around pricing that I've been doing to kind of go with this crazy market of competition, and that, yeah, there's a data point right down the street, that person got $30,000 over. The one thing that I always say to sellers is, I can't replicate, unfortunately, every time a bidding war. This person at that time was able to get an offer $30,000 above the list price. The data point that I think is more important is what they went to market at, because that's what drove the traffic to that home in the first place. And if we're similar to that property and that's where they thought was a good place, they were able to drive the traffic, and the data shows that that's where it should be. That's what's going to allow us to potentially get those same results. We could shoot the moon, and if you're comfortable with that, we may be facing appraisal cuts. We may be facing a little bit more time on market, but it's my job just to present them with data so that they can see a clear picture of what the best options are for them and support them in that decision the best they can.
So good, so good. Guys, I have one more question for them, so prepare yours to ask next. My last question is, Tracy, you mentioned multiple offers. We're getting them a lot, right? And we're setting sellers' expectations that we're getting them a lot. They can be really cumbersome to work through as a listing agent, and especially as a listing agent, for somebody that you're not faced with that every day, right? Of these multiple offers. Tell us what kind of tools or systems you guys are using to handle multiple offers. How are you communicating with other agents? How are you navigating that with your sellers? What are you doing in multiple offers? Anyone want to take that one first?
So we used to use a spreadsheet. So we use a combination of the spreadsheet and also the command feature.
I was hoping.
Like when I got the command feature, I was in love. So, and anyone that knows me, I love technology. So if you show me, I want to use it and implement it. So command has this great feature. We can have offers 1, 2, 3, 4, 50, and you can actually send it to the seller. They get to review it, and you have a conversation. You're looking at the same data. the spreadsheet we used to have was so cumbersome, and they just got so overwhelmed with just the fact that it was an Excel spreadsheet that they really couldn't figure out, okay, so what's the bottom line here? So in command, it has the highest offer, the pros and the cons, the financing, and what is my thoughts about the offer overview. So then I scheduled a conversation with the sellers. They have a chance to review it. Depending on how analytical they are, can determine how long the conversation is going to be. Most people were like, okay, so what's the highest offer? Well, wait, there's more than just prices, we have terms, right? So that we get to review all of that. Then we decide what's going to be the best offer. But before that, when we're receiving those offers, you said, what do we do with our colleagues? We notify our colleagues and say, hey, we do have one offer in hand, deadline. You know, we don't like to drag it out, y'all. I don't think that we should be dragging it out. That actually annoys my fire agents. So it's like Tracy said, if we have a property that goes on the market over the weekend, Monday by 5, you know, we're cutting it off.
Yeah.
So as soon as we receive the first offer, we say, hey, first offer received, all offers due Monday at 5 o'clock.
Real quick, how are you notifying your buyer's agents about that?
Through showing time most times. And if there's one that says in the feedback, please let us know about their offers, we give them a courtesy call because they asked for it. So we'll call them. And let
So you
them
give them
know.
a call, and then otherwise in showing time, there's a send notification function.
And then also in the MLS under agent remarks, but a lot of us don't look at agent remarks.
Got it.
So-
I like how you, yeah, I like how you
Yeah.
said, yeah,
I
me
didn't
too.
see it. It's bold.
Right there in caps.
Yeah.
I like how you said, you know, we'll cut it at 5, we'll meet with the seller at
Yeah.
7.
Let them
Let's
know
all
expectations.
agree in this room, we're not cutting off at midnight. That's
Yeah.
the
Yeah.
stupidest thing ever, right? Literally asked an agent the other day, I was like, are you presenting at 1 in the morning? Like, why are we cutting this at midnight?
Yes, it makes sense.
Yeah, so good. Tracy, wait, what's the feature called in command? The function in
You can
command?
compare offers underneath offers and commissions and your opportunity in command.
It's super slick, y'all.
It
It's a
is.
feature you should be using.
All
There
right,
is a
so
recording.
there's a recording, Brittany's gonna send it out. In opportunities, there's a function called compare offers.
It's
Yeah,
under
but it's
offers.
under offers and commissions tab.
So good,
Yeah.
so good. Tracy, how are you navigating? What kind of tools are you using? How are you communicating?
I'm using the same thing. I use the command. It's awesome. I just basically go through, write it, you know, put it in there, and that way it's easy access. However, you know, I love the agents that you have the cutoff. You send a notice out. I'm sure you've seen mine. And they schedule a showing the next day. And you're like,
After the vote.
Do they get to see that? How do they see it?
they
It's-
should see it, because
Oh.
I'll even put it in the MLS under agent remarks that no one reads,
Yeah,
apparently.
yeah,
So, you know, and then I went to a listing appointment. I had multiple offers, 4 o'clock I presented. I didn't get out till 7. There were 2 offers that were neck and neck.
yeah.
So if you want to impress your sellers, call the agents right there. And I just
Okay.
hashed it out with them right in front of them. I said, here's what these people are willing to do. What are your people willing to do? And they battled it out, and it basically came down to lease back. And then what I
Who's yours,
do,
Kevin?
just be very sure. I will say this. I always call the agents who did not win, even though it's a tough call. Call them, you owe that to them. I did have an agent not from KW say to me, I cannot believe you called me. No one ever calls me to tell me I lost.
So
And that broke my heart.
So good.
So just please make sure you call.
All right, so that the big addition on that one for me was if you have them, do it right there, have the conversation.
Yes.
And then call every one of those people afterwards, for sure. Sinjin, anything different on multiple offers?
No, I don't use the command function, I'm sorry. I just use a Google sheet, spreadsheet. It's interactive. So I can send it out and they can see what I'm looking at and I can see what they're looking at. There's a feature on the Google Drive sheet that does that. It's a highlighted box. So we know exactly what it is we're talking about, what offer we're talking about. Notifications are huge. And I found that, you know, statistically speaking, Thursday, Friday, Saturdays are best days for showing. So kind of getting into that rhythm. And initially, whenever we got into this market was, I think I talked to Julie about it one day at the beginning about just how crazy it was trying to figure out the best timing of everything so that everyone had a good shot. But at the same time, the people in the door first weren't getting frustrated.
Because they were waiting for so
Yeah,
long.
you know, I want
Yeah.
to give, you know, I respect the fact that you were there in the door. So I feel like we have a good system around that and do my best to make the personal phone calls. And
sure.
it has been appreciated every time. And a lot of people are like, you didn't need to do that. Yeah, I think it's good.
Yeah, I do too. I do too. What questions do you guys have for the panel? Want somebody to have a
Thorough moderation.
So that was very thorough, so it's kind of hard to come up with a question. So appreciate you guys. Everything that you discussed is very high level. If you could each take yourselves and take yourself back in time to like one of your first listings, because we have a lot of agents who, maybe are doing 1 to, let's say, 4 listings a year, right? Take yourself back to that amount of experience. And if you were going to a listing appointment now and you were that guy, what's something you would give that guy advice on?
Really just to learn their motivation.
Okay.
And align yourself with their goals, find out what's important to them in the process, just be a friend, but then bring in your expertise. I think that's the biggest thing, is just listening intently, and taking notes.
I think I would tell that person, be prepared. Maybe anticipate some questions they may have. But, again, we have the technology today that we didn't have years ago, especially at KW when we first opened. So with technology alone, that's able to prepare us all, whether you're new or a veteran agent.
Have something to that out there.
Yeah, so I was a little over the top when I started, because if I got a listing appointment, I was excited about it. So I drove around the neighborhood almost every day to make sure I didn't miss a sign. And I went on, and then I would look it up, and then I would look again, then I would look in public records to see if it was up for sale by owner. I mean, I was just like, I knew more about that neighborhood than I probably needed to, but I wanted to make sure that I came out with the listing. So just knowing the market, doing research, you can never do enough research. Like seriously, you can never know enough about the market, and it changes so quickly now. It's like you have to do it almost every day.
Just the one thing Drue taught me a little bit ago is just remember you're talking to the tree, not the forest.
Yeah.
And I think so often even if you've only done one real estate or your first listing, you still are way more involved in the business than the average homeowner that's out there. And this is the first time they're buying the house that they've owned for 30 years. You've talked real estate more in the last week than they probably have their whole life. So just that piece of advice that, listen, you have to talk to the tree and not the forest is just something, a good visual for me to remember every time. Give as much information and paint that picture as clear as possible, because we do take for granted what we know and how often we've gone through this process. And to them, they're fresh out of the gate. So
Yeah, and if I can add just one, I think I can speak for this panel because I know their hearts and what they want to do. If you're ever in that place, 1 to 4, trying to take your first listing and you're like, I don't know what expectations to set, even after this conversation, seek one of these guys out. I'm sure that I'm sure that they will give you a download of their mind for it. Any other questions? Who got John?
I mean, for those of us who handle a lot of listings, I think a big thing going on during this market is buyers agents frustrations, right? So I think if you're working mostly with the president of your works has some either buyer's agents or works with buyers also, you understand what they're going through. Set those expectations also, especially for the buyers. Again, agent remarks. I agree. We put so much information there. I don't know how many agents look at it, but like for our team, we put active on Thursday, block all the showings on Thursday, so the agents can see it and schedule it. We Friday, Saturdays, and Sundays, and we say if we're in a multiple offer situation, we will review either Sunday evening or Monday morning based on our client's need, and we put it all out front. We don't list on a Monday for the same purpose that my client doesn't want to take an offer on Monday. They've got 3 showings scheduled on Thursday, and so just setting those expectations, because buyers are getting abused. Buyers agents are getting tired. And if you set the rules, the buyer's agent as the listing agent up front, so they at least know what they're playing with, it makes a huge difference.
Yeah, so good. Maggie?
Do you guys do you do a 1-step or a 2-step listing appointment? And has that changed with this current market?
With me, it has not changed.
So 1 or
I
2?
do 2-step. Because I like to go to the property first and see the condition and see if there's anything that needs done and see if it needs painted, and then go and write down all the information I need to do the CMA, then come back and do the CMA and go back out then. And I go over with my laptop, show them the comps that I pulled, that I compared them to, so that they're not looking at it on paper, but they're actually seeing the pictures that I get to see. That's been very helpful.
Erica?
I'm a one stepper. I come in there and I do all the research up front, as is condition, great condition, do all the roads, what actually sold. I have it all. And then I let them know what our value proposition is. And then, I want to get the listing. I want to get them assigned there and then just go.
Yeah, one of the things we heard recently, since you were getting ready to say this, is that we're traditionally a two-step on the Daybook team. And a real estate team leader out of Virginia just said to us, like, what's the first thing a seller does whenever they think about selling their home and they get all excited about it? They go talk to everybody, right, about selling their home. And what do those people say? Oh, I have a great agent for you, right? You got to use my agent. So we're kind of a mix.
Yeah, I'd say we're more traditionally a two-step, at least personally, because I love to level people's home and be able to bring back up what we had in the conversation. Probably cost me in some instances.
But we had a conversation over the phone, maybe like pre-counseling interview, like we have that over the phone.
Mhm.
So,
About the conditions at home. and-
yeah, so maybe, I don't know.
I mean, we do that as well. We do. We have that conversation as well. And maybe I should just lean into the confidence that I have in the being said like that, rather than thinking I have to go and have a second follow-up appointment.
Right.
It's a good
And I think it's up to the seller, because some sellers won't sign on the first visit.
Right.
They will not. It's not gonna happen. So I've been to the listing that I'm going to be listing. I've been there probably 10 times. Because they've asked me to come walk through, see what needs to be, I mean, I've done it all, except for spend the night there.
Hold on.
That's coming.
She cooked dinner back. She cooked dinner there last week. Julie, what do you got?
So my question would go back to that pre-listing interview. Do you guys have like as soon as we get a call, we have a folder, whoop, those questions, right? You do a pre-listing interview with the list of questions that helps you with that,
Including asking, are they prepared to move forward?
right?
Should they like everything we say?
Are you
I'm
planning
not
on
wasting
listing
my
with me
time.
tonight? Is there anything negative about your
And
home?
we'll
They
both
always laugh at
decision
that.
makers be there, or all, I don't care if there's 5 or 1. All of them gotta be there, because again, I don't wanna waste my time, and I don't wanna waste theirs either.
And there's some tough questions, but you have to be prepared for that. Is there
Yeah.
anything negative? And they laugh, and I say, well, what if I come there and I find out there's a train track in the back door?
Yeah.
Like, we were just up in New York, and there was like train track house, and I was like, wow.
Yeah.
how are they gonna sell those
Yeah.
homes?
For sure. So yeah.
So you do
They're all
use the
doing
sheet.
the
Mhm.
interesting conversation.
Maybe compare and see if you have better questions than.
I know,
we do.
I'm curious what
Yeah.
Eric's got.
Yeah. You're like a
Let's
master.
do
Everyone,
it.
do you make up your own sheet, or is it a standard? Like, did you make up your own pre-listing question
Oh,
sheet or
geez, it's a big
hybrid?
of everything I learned, and I thought, okay, this is a great one, I'm taking that, great one, I'll take that, and we actually have it in our CRM, so it's just a matter of Anna going through all the questions, and then asking them and filling in the information, and then we follow up with them, say, hey, we're looking forward to meeting today, we go through the questions again. So they also heard my voice and also Anna's voice. So there's no.
So you'll reiterate every single question.
I do, yeah.
I love that. One of the questions on the Daybook team that I used to love when I did some listings was, if you could rate your house on a scale of 1 to 10, 1 being the worst condition, needs a complete reno, 10 being it's brand spanking new inside, what would you rate it? And they would say like 7. Well, why would you give it a 7?
What would make it a 10?
What would make it a 10? And that's when you would find out the negatives without having to be like, what do you hate about your house?
Yeah.
Well,
It's like the play on
the
kitchen's
words.
original or,
Uh-huh.
yeah,
Yeah.
could use a paint job. Yeah. All right, in the interest of time, Mike has a great last question for us.
Just really quickly, you guys are awesome. You're inspiring. Thank you. Erica, I had no idea you were nervous. So great job. We touched on something really briefly that I think is really important. Talking about controlling or managing expectations from the sellers and how to properly price a property. You guys are talking about not just what property sold for, but kind of how they got there. And I just think that's an important point to talk to people right now, because someone says easily like, oh, well, Jim and Susie on the street, they sold their property for 200,000 just last week. And then if you can show them that, yeah, but they originally listed at 175, and it's really important to share with them as far as like, but how do we get there?
And also call them pending transactions, just to see if you can feel anything out there is important.
Yeah, that's actually a great one. So Erica said that she does a lot of research on the neighborhood to know, she does all of her research before she comes in. Many people in this room might have gotten a call from me in the past, Sinjin does it, is to call the agents of those transactions and say, hey, I hope you have just a second. I wanted to break your brain. I saw that you had this house. I was listed at 175. You ended up closing at 200. Can you tell me how that went for you? Right. And then to be able to go into your seller and say, you know, here are the properties that I brought. I'm going to tell you about each one of them. I called each of the agents to learn what was happening there. Right. Totally do that all day long, all day long. She's going to kill me. The other person you can sometimes call as your favorite appraiser to talk about these questions. And she rolled her eyes at me, but they call us too, right? So how many times have we gotten a call? I mean, we get a call from an appraiser all the time when learning how it went with us. So, you know, if you don't have the knowledge or experience, there's resources to help with those things for sure. They're all around you. You just have to ask for them.
That's a great point. Appraiser, like you should have like an appraiser that you know, you like and you trust.
Beth Chang says, don't make it me.
Aren't you glad?
I do. I call. I use Jim Young. That's what I call. I call him all the time. Actually, I called someone else and was like, you cheated on me. How did you know? I told someone else. Yeah, just having a person.
That's so good. Can we get a round of applause for our panel?
We get to be first in Chile.
Oh.
Absolutely. Those front parts.
Huh? Oh, no.
So Tracy, how do you want to do the judging? Do you want to send the judges through first? Yep, so that's the end of the sales meeting. You're all,
No, they don't want to start their own. I'm not gonna look, I have a look all morning if you got what in. Want to walk up there? Where's Nate? He's in her.